Spring. I mean, it is a wonderful day. And to that end, I'm not outside, but I want to be outside and I don't want to rush. So we ain't going to be long today. Just letting y'all know as you come forth in here, to God be the glory and the devil is a liar. We love spring and we come in here, coming forth here, even in this place right now. So I'm delighted that each of you thought it not robbery to be able to be even in this class as we prepare to explore our civics, looking at legislation, regulation, and policy. So I'm gonna open up in prayer. No, I'm away from my video, my theme song. So tell a friend, tell an enemy, tell an ex, class is in session. So we're certainly excited about this. Let us pray. Eternal God, our Father and our Mother, we thank you for life and giving it to us abundantly. We thank you even for this moment, this space of technology, that this digital space, this sanctuary that connects us from various spaces. We pray, oh God, that you would let your spirit permeate, that we might seek to learn how we can be citizens of the kingdom and also exist even in this world. In your name we pray, amen. So again, delighted that you are here, and I apologize for last week. We had some technical difficulties that allowed us to be able to pause last week, but it's okay. It's okay. You all are here. And remember, as we engage in the aspect of our conversation, it really is driven by you. So you drive this process. So I'm excited to be able to come forth as we look at legislation, regulation, and policy. I didn't know. I kind of was hoping for an indictment today, but we didn't get the indictment. That's really what I thought. We were going to be talking about the indictment. So I hate it, but I'm so glad that I'm still ready for us to be able to explore the depths even of our class. So again, remember, as you go forward, our moniker is class is in session. And you will then post and share that in that regard as we continue to explore what we're going to seek to do. When we're looking here, and just in case you all missed this point, what we seek to do in this class is we teach civics by using current events. This is not a current events class. This is a civics class. And we teach civics by using current events. And so therefore, we will combine all of those elements together. And so today, again, we're looking at legislation, regulation, and policy. Legislation, regulation, and policy. And those things should always be in the forefront, or they are already in the forefront. And in that regard, we're looking at legislation, which is the aspect of statutes or acts or ordinances. Statutes, acts, or ordinances. And statutes are laws made by legislatures. And when we look at legislatures who make laws, you either have those that do it on the federal level or those that do it on the state level. And so, as I joked before, we're looking at what takes place with President Trump or former President Trump, were he to be indicted. The issue takes place is whether it's federal or whether it's state. And that's the point you always want to do. And many of us, and I want us to know this, and I want you all to hear me clearly. And many of us get caught in complaining about state laws. Let's be clear. Sometimes what's legal in Texas is not legal in New York. Sometimes what's legal in New York is not legal in Kansas. I mean, that's the point. But we say, well, they did that. When this person did this, and then they did charges and this and that. You all know what I'm talking about. What I haven't to name specific events is that we get caught up in trying to make everything federal, aka national. It is difficult, and yes, somebody being pulled over for tags or not signaling, or somebody not having incense on their rear view mirror. Yes, all those things do matter, but also so does the state laws in those matter. Because again, those state laws determine how and when police officers speak after a fatal shooting. So you just can't say what took place in Minnesota is the same thing that's in Kansas City. So again, when we're looking at statutes are laws made by legislatures. And then we have two types of statutes. The federal government's legislature is the United States Congress that makes the laws. And in each state has its own legislature, such as New York State. And legislatures have the power to make laws because the state and federal constitution give it to them, and because citizens elect them. So we're clear on that. That's how that happens. How do they make this law? How do they do that? Well, it takes place of that. An act is a law also. It is a bill that is passed through, whether it is federal or state legislatures, required for it to become law. So we have acts, we have statutes, and we have ordinances. And typically, we focus on the statutes and the acts, but sometimes we get caught up in the ordinances because the ordinances are typically local by a city or a county government that basically tries to narrow it down. So I'm sorry, I'm not facing my board, but if I want you to see a V that comes down from statutes, acts, ordinances, and then to regulations on how these things are applied. So regulations are not laws, but are directives written to explain how the law is to be implemented. C of E. C of E. And the power of your executive, the power of your principal is to determine the V. There it is. That is the power. Congress will write a law, write an ordinance, write a law, write an act, and even cities can do ordinances, but it makes no difference if the regulations are not in place. Regulations are drafted later on by the principals on the organizations or the institutions that affect what they're trying to do, whether it be the environment, whether it be transportation, whether it be space, whatever it is in that regard. And so today, I just wanted to talk about legislation, regulation, and policy in light of several aspects that have taken place in these United States of America in Palestine, Ohio, and also in California, with SVB Bank, and also with the bank in, what's the bank in there? I thought I had it there. So it's Silver. Yes. So SVB in California, and Signature Bank in New York, and Silvergate. So I wanted to let your mind wrap around this as we wrestle, like, how did this happen? And how did it happen again? The sad part is I'm 53 years old, and I have already been through technically 3 banking crises. I mean, actually, you could say 4. You could say 4. Can anybody talk about those 4 from 1970 on? So we're not talking about the Great Depression in 1929. No. Can we go from 1974 in my lifetime? Does anybody know these things that I'm talking about?
Pastor, are you talking about, you're not talking about the recessions of the 70s, are you, with the gas prices? Okay, so the gas prices, when everything fell apart. Okay. And then 75, when New York City went bankrupt.
Absolutely. And New York City went bankrupt, and I love that. Thank you, Gary. But I'm gonna have you keep going. But I want our audience to pay attention to that's how New York State controls New York City because of that bankruptcy in 1995. That New York. So therefore, you have state legislatures in Erie and in Rochester and in Syracuse being able to determine what takes place in New York City based upon what took place in 1975. Am I right, Gary?
That's absolutely right.
Thank you.
Then you had good old Gerald Ford saying to the city, drop dead.
Yes. Absolutely. So we have that. What else do we have? Anybody else want to help Gary?
I would say the market crashed, Black Monday in 1987, when the market crashed.
Okay. You got the 1987 crash. All right, I love it.
Then you also have let me see, what was it, 2008, when the banks fell in 2008, and the auto industry was
okay. So you absolutely, you hit them. I love it. So we're seeing that. We're seeing the 70s, we're seeing the 80s, we're seeing the early 90s, we're seeing 2008 in that aspect. It's like, why the hell does this keep recurring? I mean, that's the point. Like, wait a minute. So what is a banking crisis? A banking crisis basically is when the bank does not have the money that you put in it. So let me explain to you how banks make money. Banks take your money and then they lend it out. That's what they do. They take your money and they lend it out. And they lend it out for a greater percentage than they give you to be able to store it. And I know some of us get mad at Mama for putting it in her coffee can or putting it underneath her bed. He's like, Mom, what are you doing that? But no, that's how banks make their money. They actually lend it later on, and you try to do it with the spread. And all that it happens is you just don't need everybody to do what we call a run on the bank. A run on the bank to be able to, meaning everybody wants their money at the same time. And that's just like you and me. Just think about this, because I'm slowly doing this. You and I got a car loan, we got a house, we got a mortgage, we got tuition, we got insurance, we got all that. And the point is, through the month, we pay it all. But if it's all was required on March 1st, we couldn't pay it. But we can pay it on March 1st, on March 9th, on March 17th, on March 29th. You guys see what I'm saying? The problem happens is when it's all due at the same time. And not only you, but so many other people. So that's the problem, that there could be a run on the particular bank. But what I wanted to do was to think about this when we're looking here at this run that has particularly happened on this bank, is to actually put it in a broader understanding for our civics class, for us to know that elections have consequences. And we put a moron in office who was concerned about profits, and therefore, watch this, sought to get rid of regulations. And now, even though Joe Biden and Buttigieg and Jelen are in place, they're actually responding to decisions that 46 minus 1 did, Donald Trump. That's the point. So when we talk about these regulations are something that rules that an executive can begin to decide to do. And a majority of Americans elected somebody who believed in deregulation. Chris about to help me right now. Remember the last time we had big deregulation? Go ahead and say his name and call it and the story.
Ronald Wilson Reagan.
There it is. I love y'all. I love you. Ronald Wilson Reagan did deregulation with the air traffic controllers. Sought to be able to do that. And now that's why you really only got about like 5 airlines. There used to be a whole bunch of them. But now they don't exist anymore, primarily because of this thing talking about the market being able to handle it, because they really believe that regulation is bad. Now let's engage in our conversation. Can any of you tell me a government regulation that you hate? That's for all of you, not for, I didn't call Chris out. I say y'all. Regulations, anybody?
Go
ahead, Dolores.
Are you speaking of, well, I think more of it as an inconvenience. And you just mentioned airlines when I fly, having to go through the TSA and they do all the security checks, and you got to remove your belt and your shoes, and you can't bring this, that, and the other in your suitcase, that kind of thing. We've all been convinced that, hey, it's to help you, it's to prevent the bad guys from getting to people like you. So we've all accepted it. But, I preferred back in the day when I could just go through security 1, 2, 3,
I love that. 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 We're going to come back to that. Anyone else? Anyone else? Yeah, funny. Okay. So we class going to be over in like 3 minutes. So, I'm not trying to, but what Dolores, no, and I'm serious, but what Dolores has certainly brought up with us is that typically we accept regulations because of safety. That's the only reason you give up your freedom or your control, because of safety. In other words, we're afraid of, wow, this is deep. Let me say this. This is funny. And I'm not being a conspiracist, because I think now Fanto might start talking, is that, remember in the 70s, there were a whole bunch of hijacking. I mean, so that means those who are born in 60s and behind. I'm a 70s baby. I was born in 1970. And then you had all of these hijackings, but you never had a TSA response that you had to some guy trying to blow up a plane with some shoes on. I mean, it's just to think about that, how it is a whole industry that slows down you getting on your plane, getting through, because somebody said they were going to blow up the plane with shoes, as opposed to when you had all of these hijackings that were taking place in the 70s. I mean, they increased security, but that took place. So I laugh at that when we think about this component. Go ahead, Fanta. I knew you were about to chime in.
I don't know why you couldn't hear me before, but one regulation that sometimes gets me is speeding regulations in certain places. Yes.
Okay.
And especially those cameras.
The cameras in there. But remember, what are they saying for each one of these? It's for your safety. It's for your safety. Now, in New York City, and wow, this is just so good. But in New York City, we believe, it was de Blasio did that thing. And I get a couple of tickets in there from speeding, driving a bit faster. Because remember, in New York City, it's 25 miles an hour. Okay? Who drives 25 miles an hour? Nobody. And so is it a racket? Now, sometimes they got the cameras in there, but in Ferguson, in other cities like that, they actually use that to be able to get money. They trick you to be able to, Jackie said, I do now. Jackie, I do too. I slow down, like, I don't need another ticket. Lacey, just slow down in that regard. But the whole mantra about regulation is safety. Because if you feel you're going to be safe, you don't mind giving up some of your freedom. That's what it is. That is the ultimate trade-off. And yet what we're able to see is that Republicans come in, and this ain't a bash against Republicans. It's really not. Sadly, they just let people define them, particularly their candidate, the last candidate, via the Department of Transportation and Department of Treasury, sought to engage in deregulation, being able to take away some rules and regulations for safety. And now you got a whole country, a whole county, a whole city, Palestine, East Palestine, Ohio, all because of what Donald Trump did. And guess what? Donald Trump is out of office. And now you begin to see what took place with Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank and Silvergate Bank with their failures. That takes place right now. And Donald Trump is out of office. Wow. And many of us think that these things do not matter. They do matter. And that's what we're called to see, is that the president is able to, after Congress does the legislation, the executive branch does the regulation to be able to determine the rules. And legislation can't be so rigid. Legislation is vague. You can't, because it can't be that flexible. So it's up to the executive branch to try to figure out how it fits. And now we had somebody that came in there that thought that it wasn't important to have braking system on trains. It's funny and it's sad, but have you all seen how many derailments have now taken place? And now how many banks are failing? Because these people automatically start with this premise of the government is bad. So therefore, less government is better for me, instead of more government is better for me. in that regard. And that's what I want us to see in this particular component. When you're looking at here, legislation, remember the first form of legislation when we looked at our Constitution is called the Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights was described to keep government away from people. That's what it was, because they believe that, like government should not be doing this. And so now what we end up doing is saying that, government does do good things. And yet we have allowed the narrative that is determined by the right to say what are the negative things that the government does. So I can ask you right now, what are some positive things that your government does for you? That you like?
Medicare.
Okay, Medicare. All right.
Transportation, as far as infrastructure to a point.
Okay, so infrastructure with transportation. I love it. Anyone else? Come on, y'all.
So along the same lines as Medicare, Social Security, you know that you'll get something at a certain age.
Absolutely. I mean, when I think about, because I'm talking to these people who say, get government out of me. But you're right. We have Medicare, we have Social Security, we got seatbelts. I mean, think about seatbelts. That most of us that are here, that are on this call, it certainly, if you're driving, you put a seatbelt on. Now, maybe if you're a passenger, you don't put a seatbelt on, Fanta?
No, I have PTSD from a car accident where it severely damaged me.
So you never wear a seatbelt?
Never.
I said that's what I'm glad I said the word most of us. I didn't say all of us, but that's a rare case.
But only because of the accident.
Oh no, I hear it. I hear that in that regard. But all I'm saying is these things, these rules, these regulations have been created to be able to save lives. But somebody has always told us that when government is wrong, it stops innovation, it stops creativity, it stops work, it stops jobs. That's the narrative. But yet we can begin to see Medicare, Obamacare, Social Security, seatbelts, the speed limit, the gas price. Even watch this. That's the point that you have to be able to stop gouging. I mean, when I give gas, and as expensive as gas is, I want to make sure that my gallon is a gallon. And they come through and trust it. And I don't know about you, but I can tell you about your pastor. I don't eat at restaurants where it says it has a C grading on it. Does any of y'all eat at a restaurant that you see that big old blue C outside? So all I'm saying is that many of us, all of us, like the principles of what the federal government seeks to do. But yet we have allowed a narrative from the right to always say that the federal government is overreaching and in your life and stopping you from doing what you need to do, when technically that's actually a lie. The federal government is stopping me from selling rotten meat. The federal government is stopping me from charging you exorbitant prices for a dilapidated apartment. Those are the things that it is in there. And we have allowed their narrative to exist over against ours.
Well, it's because their narrative is more focused on money, and those that have the money to be able to get more money.
Absolutely. And because it's about money, they don't give a damn about nobody else. What did I say? It's all about the money, ain't a damn thing funny. I mean, that's really what it is. Thank you, Christopher. Absolutely. Deacon Beckwith, in that regard, greed. Oh, look at you. Look at that. Coming to the 21st century. Look at you. I'm so proud of you. But yeah, but it is the aspect of greed, and you don't care about that. And what I'm wanting to see is that this greed system can start earlier. Like, you might think that it's done. Trump has been out of office for 2 years, and we're still dealing with these Trumpisms. That's the point to take place. And then now, so what I want to say is we pay attention to the federal government, and we have drawn our attention to what has taken place in Palestine, Ohio, and particularly with Silicon Bank, looking at the failure of that. And it's sad. People have lost money, and because of bad investments and bad decisions that's in there. And it gets all the news. But what I wanted to talk about, as I started with there, is the crazy stuff that's taking place on state levels.
Right. I was going to say, if you're talking about stuff like that, let's not forget places like Louisiana, where we're talking about the levees. What the failures of the levees, especially in 2005. See if there's anything else I can think about.
No, you're right. And here's the point. And I love that narrative that you brought up about the levees. And sometimes we get in conspiracy. It ain't about necessarily conspiracy. It's talking about what lives and what communities matter more, that allowed them to blow those levees in the Ninth Ward. That was it. So those type of things happen. So you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. And so now currently we're engaged in what I was calling cultural wars. Cultural wars. That in Tennessee, they have down a ban on drag. So what's wrong with drag? Why? And I don't know if y'all been to Nashville. I've been to Nashville, and in the area where they do have the drag and they have the people, that brings in a whole lot of money. But yet you're saying we want to close it down because children might affect with it. Children can go to where you get the wings at. Y'all afraid, the guys are afraid to say it.
Oh, Hooters.
Hooters. Thank you very much. But nonetheless, that you got to write in legislation to ban drag, as if drag affects young people in this particular regard. It really doesn't. So you beginning to see the rules, and then this fool, the worst fool, who actually is Trump light, with this Stay Woke Act. And again, let me be very, very clear. And I think my church is as relevant as possible. And we ain't heard nobody say woke at our church in, I don't know how, it got to be 7 years. I mean, it's like, wow, that's like, we might as well say groovy. That's the point. So you come in here with this woke act that's now trying to ban people from being able to teach history, and then now you got your 999 Act, 999. It could have been 666 Act, state legislation that talks about you can be arrested if you have an undocumented resident or undocumented person in your car or in your house, and you can be arrested. This stuff looks like Nazism. And I love this language. Just like I say 46 minus 1, I call him the Nazi, because that's what he's acting like, a Nazi. I mean, it's crazy when you see these aspects of how it takes place on a local level, that these southern states, and that's what we want to understand, the importance why the NAACP has fought for a federal level, because if we leave it up to states, they do stuff like this. They're again banning drag, which is the next step to watch banning drag, and half of them have been to drag shows and probably been in drag. You got pictures of Rudy Giuliani in drag, but yet you want to ban drag. And now you got this aspect of staying woke in this regard. And then, Chris, before I get you in there, and then now when the federal government, when the state government starts to do that, then business starts to respond. And now Walgreens is going to refuse to sell abortion pills, the day after pills, not only in states, in all states in states that even where abortion is legal. That's crazy when we misunderstand the overall role when we're talking about what our statutes are, what our ordinances are. And yet we see these legislators coming in and trying to actually legislate morality or judges. Beckwith, sir.
Okay, so did you hear this thing about, speaking of Florida, that he wants to remove the D9 from all college campuses?
Yes. Yes. Not only does he want to remove the Divine Nine from Black campuses, but he wants to get rid of all interest groups. So no Asian, no Jewish, no affinity groups associated by race. It is ridiculous. Why would anybody? What feeds that desire that you think that these things are bad? Think about this. What feeds this desire for people to actually believe that it is bad? You mean to tell me being a Kappa at Ottawa University or Kansas, how does that bother you? And why do you need to stop it? Go ahead.
Because they won't let him be a part of it.
Because they can't be a part of it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the D9 are very powerful. So that
he can't be a part of it.
Okay. So with the D9 is powerful. Okay. So he wants to cut them off. What else?
He's basically is part of that white is right philosophy, I think. It has to be our culture. We're white. We know it's our way. It's our way. It's the right way. We are going to reduce any other cultures. We're not going to allow that to come into play. When back in, I guess, the 70s, when you went onto these white campuses, there was no other group being represented. And that's when you had the Asian clubs to be formed, the African-American club to be formed, and so forth. So he wants to go back. He and others who think like him want to go back to that. We want it going back. Simple as that, our way.
Right. And so when you begin to talk about that, it's you put it very, very succinctly to begin to think about that. And what I believe it reveals is a desire for it to be focused on white culture and nothing else. So we miss the mark if we just think it's about the Divine Nine. It ain't just about the Divine Nine. It's just about white being right in that regard. And so in addition to that, Deacon Beckwith, you all would also be reminded that this also has just came across the pages, is that now in the state of Florida, the book that they're going to be reading regarding history, particularly about civil rights, doesn't even mention the race of Rosa Parks. I mean, just think about that. And that's what I'm just saying. When you got to talk about what's in the beginning, what's in the end, what's in the middle. Rosa Parks was asked to sit in the back because of her race. And now that's being removed. I mean, just this is crazy. And what kind of country are we living in that people like somebody like that? And it just ain't flow. I'm just using them. I got other stuff. I'm just using that. Remember, I did start with Tennessee. I started with Florida. You know, and you got it in North Dakota. Like, really? Like, wow, why would you now deneuter Rosa Parks to say that she was just asked to move to another seat? Really? Yes, ma'am.
I have two questions. I need a definition for woke.
Mm-hmm.
And my second one is, if they're going to take Rosa Parks' race out, are they going to talk about her at all or just remove her from the story completely?
From the back, no, she's moved because it's just like an inconvenience that she was just wronged because, see, remember, and thank you. Oh, I love it, Diane, because that's their retaliation. The retaliation, which gets into the aspect of this component of wokeness, and we'll define it, is that the retaliation is white kids. They use one story of white kids feeling bad about their past. So you don't want to tell the story. Hell, when I look at Kunta Kinte get his ass whipped, it hurts me. I don't want to see that. But nonetheless, they're arguing that when we teach our history, that these white kids feel bad about themselves. So now you try to take it out of the way that it's them or their grandparents or their aunts and uncles, and just basically just make it neutral to say Rosa Parks was done wrong, but not because of her race. That's what they're doing. And so and it's funny secondly, when you do this aspect of woke, like I said, woke was a colloquialism about being being aware as to, you know, the trips of society, of the man and all of that. But when you listen to being able to know your true history of who you are as a Black man, as a Black woman, you know, and don't fall into traps. And so now white folk have grabbed this term, I mean, long after it is dead and played. Dead and played, they don't use this term no more, and now use it in a derogatory way. That even in a bill, this is in a piece of legislation that's called a woke act, anti-woke act. I mean, that's it's just played, but they can't define it. But what we define woke as, being woke means being able to understand your environment and not being tricked to being a part of your own depression or your own destruction. That's really what stay woke. That's actually what it is. Keep your eyes open and watch. And staying woke ain't even just, watch this, staying woke ain't even just about Black issue. It's about this person that's with your husband or with your wife. It's keep your eyes open on everybody that's around you in your space. And they try to use that with stay woke with, what's the other thing for law school?
Critical race theory.
Critical race theory. They made those two things the same thing, and neither one of them are dead at all. Yes. Thank you, Diane. Excellent. Fanta. Excellent.
Thank you.
Brother Earl had something to say, but I just wanted to say something real quick because I'm not defending DeSantis and them, but there are a bunch of people who feel as though and believe not just about let's protect ourselves, but if we just ignore race and if we just don't acknowledge any aspects of it, then that's the only way to overcome it. which is a load of bullshit. We know this, but there are people that that feel that way. So like if I don't talk about race, if I don't acknowledge any of those things, then we'll just move on from it. And yeah, that's
no, you're right. It just isn't him. It is a train of thought of people, because what they're arguing, what they say is, then we're playing the race card. It ain't about race, but actually race is part of the story, and you cannot take that out. And that's what they're trying to do, is to basically say that race doesn't matter. You just had bad people. No, they were bad people. And here's the scary part. Well, I want to let y'all know, and I want y'all to hear me clear. This is why they don't like it. Because the scary part ain't because of me. The scary part is because of them. Because it ain't like I want y'all to understand, the Ku Klux Klan was a Christian organization. They went to church. Left church, they sang their hymns and all of that, and then lynched somebody, and then took pictures with their body. And they're going to get mad at me for saying that happened. Because what it does is it tells a story about them. That's really what it is. Did y'all hear what I said? They went to church. They sang about Jesus, left and hung a black man and a black woman, and then took pictures and watched this and took relics of the body. And do you know how good technology is? Now we can find out who they are. And they're mad at that. You know, when we see those, remember, we just saw that with the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. He wasn't at a lynching, but he was at Central High School, where people were yelling at other blacks coming to the school, and he said he was just watching. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. See, that's what is now happening, and is making them have to explain to their kids, because their kids are open. The kids love rap music. They love black people. They want to be Beyonce. They want to do all this. Like, why you hate black people? You mean tell me, granddad? And they got to explain that. That's, I'll give me some pushback. Beckwith, go ahead, sir.
Well, as you were saying, that example is like the Klan, instead of, being lionized, the more that these things come out, they're more demonized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And nobody wants to be demonized. So guess what happens? Oh, I love that. Thank you, Beckwith, because you triggered another thought. Because the first thing when we talk about whites in slavery, blacks in slavery, you know what they want to quickly say? Well, African countries sold people in slavery too. Can't wait to say that story. And yes, we hate that narrative. And that narrative is true. But it ain't the only narrative. And that's peace. Justin.
So there's this viral video that went around from an interview, and it's painful to watch because I felt bad for the journalist, but she set herself up for it, and it's 51 seconds. Can I share it?
Yes, please do.
Okay,
Thank you, sir. I love you, my man. Watch this, y'all.
It was
painful. This is all because of Diane. Diane, you the best. Earl, you married above your grade.
Of Americans consider themselves very liberal, and probably fewer of them consider themselves to be woke. And so, when we talk about traditional,
what does that mean to you? Would you mind defining woke? Because it's come up a couple times, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
So, I mean, woke is sort of the idea that this is going to be one of those moments that goes viral. I mean, woke is something that's very hard to define, and we've spent an entire chapter defining it. It is sort of the understanding that we need to totally reimagine and redo society in order to create hierarchies of oppression. it's hard to explain in a 15-second soundbite.
Yeah,
Take
look,
your time.
Can you, I mean, you can't make that up. That is, you cannot, and yet they're using that as a story. I'm sorry, Justin, keep talking. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. But so it's a whole Twitter thread, and like people going back and forth. It's like, well, you set her up, and there was another guy. I can share the Twitter thread in the comments, but he basically was saying Google is free. You know, a lot of journalists who came up with this act and everything should have taken the time to look up this colloquial term that was established in the Black community.
Right.
It's simple to define it. You just can't use a word and then not expect for us to check you for it. So
that's correct. That's correct. That's correct. I like that. And what happened? It was funny. At the Oscars, I was listening. Clay Kane had somebody. I listened to Clay Kane's show, and I like him. And they were talking to Jonathan Majors, and some lady was talking to Jonathan Majors, and she asked him, like, who do you like? And this, okay, so let's be clear. She's covering the majors, she's in the arts. And he said Otis Redding, and she had no idea who he was sitting on the dock of the bay. And so it created a big backlash. Should she have had to know? Well, if you're going to introduce people, that's like me coming to church and saying, I don't know Amazing Grace. Let me tell you what, if your pastor don't know Amazing Grace, you don't need a pastor. There's certain things that they ought to be able to know, because that's the industry. And that's what he's saying, this colloquial term, woke, that they're throwing out, that they can't define themselves. Because woke is, first, it's old, it's done. So we're through defining it. We done moved on to we now talking about being 100. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about being woke. We're trying to be a grand. That's a colloquialism that we're able to do in the midst of our culture, that somehow they are able to grab and use it against us. Fanta.
I'm sorry, I kind of slightly disagree, because yes, it's retired in the essence of the movement aspect, but like with all of our colloquialisms, they stay with us for the purpose. And when I'm having certain dialogues with my people, I might say to them, now stay woke and keep on moving. But it's not like we need to we're not in that. Just like what's up is still a part of us. It's never going to go away, but they can't. It's again, them taking something and juxtaposing it and making it not what it is.
Well, you're not disagreeing with me, because I agree with you in that regard. We can still say that. But in our component, it isn't. So watch this, in a nuance, it's stay woke. It ain't stay woke like that. So they're putting the emphasis on the aspect of woke. No, it's a whole cultural nuance that we're able to have. And honestly, sadly, if I was able to do that, that's the same thing that takes place with the N word and the B word. It depends upon the community. I mean, because let me tell you what, I love secure, but I hated the language, the B word. But nonetheless, when I talk to young ladies, they like, no, we say that, what's up, B? What's up, B? Or what's up, N? So, but again, that's internal, it's not external. So you're right, Fanta, in that regard. Justin.
Now, we do say stay woke, but then you have some people who don't go to sleep, and we call them the ho-tips, because they are the ones that, it's like Grand Rising beloved, and they go on this long spiel, and they're the ones that give the stay woke people the wrong
bad rap.
Right. So we have to set boundaries somewhere in this wokeness. Rest is available. Okay. We have to take a nap at some point. We can't be woke all the time.
He said,
Amen.
You're right. Grand Rising and Happy Born Day.
I really don't like good morning. I don't.
But we're still saying that's what we do as people. We're forever changing terminology. And that's what it means. And now for these people to grab something that we said 10 years ago. I mean, They're on to the next thing, and they're trying to define it and can't even do it. Don't even know what it meant in that regard. So that's what I'm saying. To even call it that in a bill, which is really an anti-history bill. That's what it was. Dolores.
So question, so I don't know what Go Tips is. I think that's what I heard.
Hoteps.
Oh, Hotep. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, that I know. Okay. So what I really wanted to say is, so where's the pushback from us, from the progressives, from the people who, you know, understand what woke is and how it came about, and why allow them to, and it's been said, why allow them to define us? Take that word and put their meaning on it, and then they move into all kinds of actions around that. Where's our pushback?
Well, I mean, you're right. It's few and far between, but that's why Justin gave the clip. That was one of the forms of the pushbacks. And
Thank
so
you.
when I argue back, before I got too woke, I have argued with many people, including my pastor colleagues, who were talking about critical race theory. And I argue critical race theory is not taught nowhere but in law school. So do not say that term. I have never been engaged in critical race theory because I've never been to law school. So you gotta then stop them right there when they start using those welfare queen and single family home. Soon as they start using language, you stop them right there, because that language is designed to be able to trap us. But you're right. And that's I thank Justin for being able to show that. It was a viral clip, and watch this. And because of power, white privilege, Newsday did a story talking about how it was almost like a setup, like trying to defend and rehabilitate her. No, she said woke and she didn't know what it meant. Yeah. No different if I'm talking about something and I don't know what it means. Yeah, churches come here and they have their Eucharist. Pastor, what's the Eucharist? It's just when people just come and they're just enjoying, and you heard her. She could not define it, and neither can Ron DeSantis or any of those others in that aspect. And part of it, what we love is that's woke is like hip hop. It's hard to define. You got to be in it to be able to define the ins and outs of it. It is fluid in that regard. And that's why it can be a term that is in the past and that Fanta said, and yet can be brought back forth. Though that's what we seek to do. The same way when we say brother, or sister, we're real careful when you look at somebody and you decide whether or not you're gonna call them a brother or sister. But we know who we're not calling a brother or sister. And think about this. We didn't go to school. Our mom and daddies didn't tell us that. It's somehow that we were able to get that. Oh, that's good. That's good. That's good. I love that. I love that. But we're looking at them, and that's national attention. And the point that I'm moving forward, when I talked about federal law and state law, the most important law is what takes place in New York State. I mean, I feel sorry for what's going on in Florida or in South Carolina or Tennessee or Louisiana, North Dakota, but what's going on in New York State? In New York State is about to create a menthol ban, cigarette ban. And I want to get your input on this. I love it because we actually are divided, and I couldn't believe that y'all know menthol, a menthol cigarette ban. Menthol is the most deadly form of tobacco product, and they're looking to stop, to ban menthol, particularly flavored menthol products. And now, in that regard, that's what the governor wants to do. So you got people, including Reverend Al Sharpton and others, that says that Black folk use menthol And so therefore, it is a trap to get Black folk in jail, but menthol is deadly. I want us to wrestle with this proposed menthol ban.
Are they taking it out of cough drops?
No. Absolutely. And are they taking it out of, are they taking the flavor out of CDB? No. But
that's CBD.
CBD. I don't know. You a pro. I don't know.
THC.
Yeah, okay, right. All right, baby. Back with Savior Pastor.
Now, one thing I do notice that in some, the bodegas and stuff, as far as cigarettes, the limited amounts and stuff, the most that you might see is, a pack of Newports, maybe some Cools. I don't ever go in these stores. I don't see any Marlboros. I don't see any, what's these other ones? I want to say Kent. I don't remember. But I know it's like, I used to kind of know the cigarette brands because my mother used to smoke. I used to, she used to send me to the store to get her Virginia Slims.
But I'm hearing you, but you're missing my point. What I'm saying is Black folk overwhelmingly choose menthol. Well, overwhelmingly, those that smoke. If you know anybody that smoke, I can guarantee you it is likely, I will bet dollars to donuts that they do a menthol product. I don't know why they do that, Dolores. I don't know why they do that, but the facts has done that. And so now that but menthol is the most deadly and the most addictive, but yet we have Black civil rights people saying that we don't want to do this because once you do this, you push the product underground and it leads to my man in Staten Island, Eric Garner. It leads to Lucy's. It leads to that because let me tell you, because watch this, let me be clear. Cigarettes cost another tax. Cigarettes can be taxed $4.35 in taxes per pack. And so what they end up doing is they bring them from Virginia and North Carolina. So now if you push it underground, then you now making them a target for the police to do that. So that's Reverend Sharpton and others' position. But yet you got the healthcare community that is saying, you know what?
Lacey?
Go ahead.
When you got the confirmation I was ready, right?
Yep, she sent it to me.
Okay, we're gonna mute these folks.
What happened?
I think it was an accidental unmute.
But she called me. I don't know. Okay. Cheryl was saying something. You coming back in, Cheryl?
I think she was picking up an order.
Oh, she picking up food? Okay, I'm sorry. But that's what I'm wanting us to be able to see is that it's easy for us to talk about what I wanted you all to see about a drag ban in Tennessee, a Stay Woke Act in Florida, and what takes place with Walgreens. But currently, before your own eyes, our New York State is engaged in this particular concern of to whether or not ban menthol. And there are two different sides, and we ought to be able to know, to be able to participate in that regard, because that matters most in that regard. I'm gonna have Tara Lynn, and then we're still gonna ask Diane to say something because she can talk about how deadly menthol is.
Yeah, for the menthols, I think it's heavily used in the Black community because it's heavily advertised in our community.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it's so funny when you get trapped in this. This is what I love our class, and I want to see how complicated things can be. And it's advertising that it just ain't advertised. That means that bodega gets paid to put that stuff there. It just ain't there so you see it. They're being paid to do this. So they get money to push that up. And for my good friend, I mean, I'll call him my uncle, and may he rest in peace, Reverend Dr. Calvin O. Butts III, when he wanted to whitewash those signs of all those liquor signs and all those cigarette signs that was in our community. He says, he wanted to whitewash that stuff and said, we don't want this in our community. But you're right. If you get money to push it and kids come in and see it, and if it's flavored, you get it. But it hit me, but yet you can still do flavored CBD, THC. I'm sorry. You can do flavor, but they're wanting to get rid of flavored menthol. That's just interesting. And that's what I wanted us to see, to think about the public policy way, because once you start trafficking from the underground economy, it is us that will be affected. Because I'm just telling you, let me be crystal clear. You can make a whole lot of money bringing cigarettes from Virginia and North Carolina up here, like you can with guns. A whole lot of money. And so what we're saying is, instead of selling weed, they're now selling technically a legal product that's just banned here, but not banned anywhere else. Answer, go ahead, and then Diane, I just want you to, if you could just add anything, if you want to.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to say, I think part of it we're talking about now with the advertising, but the whole menthol push wasn't a super advertising thing. And I only speak this, I wasn't a cigarette smoker, never really smoked cigarettes. But I come from heavy tobacco users and the land of tobacco. And it was harsher. And once they added the menthol, it made it cooler to smoke and to chew. So and people pass that on to children. The issue with it now with the flavoring is the flavor aspect makes it advertisable and enticing to kids.
Right. Absolutely. And I see it. I do. Gary.
If memory serves, I believe the NAACP is for the ban, and yet people like Eric Gardner's mother is against the ban. So, I mean, there is this conflict within the neighborhood, because if I've heard the advertisements for the ban, the NAACP is going strictly after the health issues and the greater levels of cancer in the Black community because of the menthol in the cigarettes.
Right. And then Ms. Garner and Reverend Sharpton are going with that it will lead to over policing. And that's what I wanted to kind of just let you all see this and come in here. Diane, do you want to say anything, or are you good?
Okay, I was just reading, they said that the people have the like the menthol because it's soothing, like Fanta was saying. But they said that the menthol is just as deadly as the other one. Some people may think that because it's menthol, it's healthier, but that's not true.
Gotcha.
I don't have anything.
Okay, no, but that's what I want. And that's the point, what we're saying. So something has been pushed on our community and it's been easier. And then yet we have people in our community that have said, but we don't want to do that for fear of over policing regarding that, because Eric Garner lost his life for selling loose cigarettes. But do we just stop our health concerns because it's over loose cigarettes? Okay, Fanta.
I hope this is my last one. But I feel like what will happen is, here again, we have this situation where it's the tale of two cities. We have the crunch down on tobacco, which is still legal. It's still a big money maker for the United States, still one of our top exports. And then we have the drug on fentanyl, the war on, but they need help for their use of fentanyl and those type of drugs. But we're struggling, and now we're going to be dealing with the trafficking of cigarettes because it's one of those messes.
Oh, I love it. See, I got it. So they put the outline in here. And how does this fit in here? I didn't necessarily do it the way I wanted to, but the way I've written it, it is there. When I looked at the silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank and Silvergate Bank, and talked about Alexander Hamilton, who was able to create the Treasury. So he created the Treasury, created our first federal national bank. And what it sought to do was to assume the nation's debt against England, establish a mint, but also the imposition of federal excise taxes. And that's what you all miss. What I'm just saying is, we make money on what we say is bad. If it's that bad, then ban it altogether. But instead, we want to make money off of it. $4.35 a pack. That's what I'm saying. Liquor and all these things that we saying is called excise. And so, and actually, it'd be great if they, and I forgot in what state it is, they do not charge food tax. But in New York State, we pay you pay taxes on your eggs, you pay taxes on your milk, but you pay an excessive tax if you wish to drink or smoke cigars or cigarettes in that regard. And that's the piece that I kind of wanted us to wrestle with on why these people, if it's in there, why you keep hitting them. I mean, think about this. Hear me now. $4.35 a pack is 24 cigarettes in there. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. How many? What you say, Pat? You muted. It's 10. You still muted, Pat. Patricia.
They're only 20 in a pack.
Okay, you're a pro. Okay, it's only 20 in a pack. Only 20 in a pack. $4.35 tax on that. And again, mine is, because again, let me be very, very clear. I'm hearing their argument. So now you've made it so high that now you created which is Reverend Sharpton and Sister Garner are arguing, is that now cigarettes can come from North Carolina and Virginia, just like guns are, and then you get in there. I mean, that's the point I want us to see with the wrestling. Brenda, I'm glad. Come on in, Brenda.
No, I just want to know, how much is a pack of cigarettes nowadays?
$5 and change.
How
in
much?
North Carolina.
No,
$5
this is
and
about
change.
$10 for a pack of cigarettes.
That's in North Carolina.
Yeah, she's about $10.
Newport's here almost $14 a pack.
Really?
You can get off brands for $10. Not to put her out there, but my stepmama is a chimney.
And when they grow tobacco, they put poison on it to kill the worms and the bugs.
Yeah.
And that's killing people too.
You're absolutely right. So we want to see how, it's like, and the majority of that is taxes. Think about that. So if you got a $10 pack and now you paying $4.35 in tax, almost 40% of the product is taxes. And so that's why now what they're arguing, and I hear that argument with the health argument, you now created a black market because you can go down to North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina, same thing. It's hard. You are aware it's hard to get a gun in New York State, but you can go to South Carolina and get it just like that. And get it just like that in North Carolina. So that's what's happening in this regard. And that's what in our civics class, I just want us to be able to see both sides as opposed to demonizing. And what are we weighing? Are we weighing health? Are we weighing political safety in that regard? So that's how, as Gary said, NAACP is clearly like, no, it is health. Sharpton and Gwen, they're like, no, it's safety, because in New York City, we're over policing. And you can respect either side, but you at least ought to be able to know what's going on. Deacon Beckwith.
let's not forget why the main reason why the cigarettes are as high as they are was because of the taxes. And I'll say it in 2 words: Michael Bloomberg.
Well, Michael Bloomberg put it in there, but that's what I was telling you when I talked about here's the point. The Fed, the National Bank, and it's in your chat. The National Bank is created, and the way the National Bank exists, it is able to pay for excess taxes. And many of you all don't know how the federal government is funded with some of your taxes, but you get excess taxes. You got highway taxes, which is your gasoline tax. You just don't pay the federal, you don't just pay New York State, but you also pay the federal government for that. But what I'm saying is that tax, there's no way we could ever have a gasoline tax at $4.75, $4.35 a gallon. Never. But because we demonize this population of cigarettes, that's what it is, and those who drink alcohol, because that's what's called excise. You don't tax everything. It's just these things that are taxed the most. That's what I want you to see. We decided to say these things are bad, and if you want to do it, we can charge you more. And now and it's interesting what our current president is doing. Biden's talking about now these taxes that they created on these airlines, where, charging you more if you want to sit together with your family. Remember, y'all know we used to check luggage for free, and now you're going to charge me for checks baggage and all this. These are foolish things. And now Joe Biden, he done tapped into. And so it's easy to tap into people that are traveling on an airplane than somebody that has a cocktail and a cigarette. That's the point. So they're being able to be. So all I'm saying, watch this. So currently is $3.35. I am saying that our governor now wishes it to increase by $1 per pack, a whole dollar, to $4.35. So keep talking about Florida, keep talking about North Carolina, North Dakota, but I'm just telling you, you ain't free in this New York State in this regard. But some of you all say, but I don't smoke. Okay, that's good. But eventually there'll be things that you do that they will say that is certainly uncalled for. And that's my desire for us to see. Go ahead, Pat.
Now, I just want to back up for a few minutes. If they could tax the abortion pill, you think they'd do that?
Yes, ma'am, they would.
Well, why don't they do something about Viagra?
And they would do. I love it, and they would do that too. You absolutely right. You're right. You're right.
If a woman can't take the abortion pill, the man should not be able to take Viagra.
No, you're right. And that's what we got to be able to call attention to blow the whistle on what is being taxed and what is not being taxed. And typically what is taxed is what we're technically saying is what we don't approve of, which is what is not the most enduring to the society, aka alcohol, cigarettes, and even what Chris brought up with Bloomberg. Remember, Bloomberg wanted to have a sugar tax, and again, he argued from a health basis is that's why people are getting diabetes. So remember, Bloomberg stopped you from getting that giant slushy. I know I don't know if y'all remember that. Y'all remember that big gulp? You can't get it no more in New York because of Bloomberg. Now, we could say it's over meddling, but that's how we're talking about how policy is implemented. And this policy is designed because what he's saying is, I know you think you got a choice, but if you're eating this sugary product, eventually you'll get diabetes. I got to pay for you for the hospital. I got to get your health care and all of that. That's what he's arguing. But at the same time, you are saying, I have a right to have what I want to have. And that's what I'm saying. We have missed being able to have a real debate. We demonize those who disagree with us because there are good points on both sides. It really is. It really is. I mean, really, man, out of this whole world, you so concerned about me getting a big gulp, a big slushy, you know, but yes, he could if the health and medical thing in here. But Madam Governor, I hear you saying this thing with the health, but if you can have flavored marijuana, then why can't you have flavored cigarettes? I mean, you got to explain, and that's what I want us to do. To when they're there, trust me, your pastor is asking them these questions. But when you're there, I need you to ask our governor, our mayor. And lastly, you know, we're supposed to be closing Rikers Island in 2027. But if you have done your research, you will see that now it looks like 2029, and our current mayor, excuse me, says that he's going to enforce the law, but the actions say that it's not, in terms of what will take place with what those people that are at Rikers Island. And a lot of times what I'm just saying is we focus on national stuff in other places, but in our state, we got concerns with whether bail reform is real and legitimate. And again, you got a mayor that says it should be rolled back. You got whether or not Rikers Island should be closed or not. You got a mayor that says that it shouldn't be. And then whether or not we ban menthol or not. And you got a governor that says it should be. So those are the things that we got, and all of those things affect our community and our children, but yet we're not talking about them. That's what I wanted to be able to lead you all with, that absurd woke and absurd drag and all that stuff, to let you know in our very own eyes, there are things that are going right now that can affect our children. Any comments, questions, observations?
Good evening, Pastor. I know I'm a little late, but I was listening on Facebook before joining now. I did put a question in when you mentioned Rosa Parks. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Rosa Parks and her being removed from the front of the bus to the back of the bus. And you said because of her race. Did the law at that was sitting for people of color sitting on the back of the bus, was that a law?
Yes, it was. Time? Yes, it was.
Okay, that's what I thought, because when I was teaching, that discussion came up with my students, and I had to explain to them, because of course they're bringing to the table what they hear from their parents. And I had to explain to them there were laws and we had to abide by the laws, correct?
Yes, yes,
okay.
Yes.
So I just wanted to make sure.
No, you hit it. And what I was saying in that, just for those of you some of you who might join later on, what I was arguing in is in the Florida curriculum, they are putting forward, they're fighting it, but it's proposed for the curriculum for the book that they're using after its revision to be able to make Rosa Parks raceless. Meaning that Rosa Parks was just asked to sit in the back of the bus without talking about, she was asked to sit in the back of the bus because she was Black, and there were laws that says coloreds could not sit in the front. Right. And that piece is moved out. And that's the danger that we have in our community with this foolishness that's going on in these states who just don't look. When we, like I said, I didn't even watch Woman King. I didn't finish it. I'm tired of watching slavery movies. I get mad. I would blow up in rage. I can't do that. Most of African Americans don't do that. But they don't think about our rage. They're concerned about their guilt. And that's what I want you to see. When we see it, we get angry. When we see, am I right? And when we see this stuff, my name is Toby. When you see 12 years a slave, and when you see Kissy being raped, and you see all of, you get angry. They get ashamed. And that's what this whole thing is about, their shame and not our anger. Because if our anger was really real, we burned the whole damn thing down. And so that's the piece there that I wanted to pull out when I said that. But so thank you, Lorraine, for pulling that back up. And that's what I was wanting us to be able to see. So again, as I did with the menthol and with the other, what's the other side? And so again, the other side is they found one bad story of one teacher making white kids feel bad about being white. And that's the whole thing with this whole, it was just one story. And that's just crazy. That's crazy. And that teacher was wrong for that. That teacher was wrong. Just like in Westchester, where I live right now, there was a teacher that had black kids pick cotton. But that ain't all teachers in Westchester. It's not. But it's somehow that they can grab that and tell you that that's the only story. But thanks be to God, you got a professor. You got a teacher who's going to give you the real facts for you to know, so that now when you're at lunch, when you're at the hairdresser, when you're at the barbershop, when you're at the butcher, you can correct somebody. And that's what I seek to do, one person at a time. So thank you all for being a part of this community. My light went down. I don't know why that happened. Because I guess it said I've been too long. Thank you all for being a part of our conversation. We will not meet next week. We'll not meet till after resurrection. But if the president does get indicted and arrested, we might have a class. Let y'all know. We'll have something to talk about. All right.
Something to talk about or something to celebrate.
Something to celebrate. Something to celebrate.
Yes, yes.
Indeed. So certainly, thank you all. I'm gonna ask Deacon Beckwood, can you close us in prayer?
Okay. Eternal God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this time you've allowed us to share, to learn, to dialogue and discuss what's going on, and to get enlightenment on these things that we need to know about. We need to stay aware of things and forces that could be against us. We need to know what it is we have to do to make things right and to keep on the right path. Now, God, we thank you for our pastor, Pastor Lacey, this evening, Lord, that you've allowed him to facilitate this discussion. We pray, oh God, that you continue to enlighten us, continue to lift us up, continue to make us the citizens, not only the Christians, but the citizens that we should be. Now, Lord, dismiss us from this place, but never from your presence. It's in Jesus' name that we ask it all. Amen.
Amen. And certainly thank you. And I misspoke, and Debbie just put something in the chat. Yes, the former president. But let me tell you something about Debbie. Debbie is a descendant of Sally Hemings. Okay. So somebody that's participating in the midst of our class. So Thomas Jefferson is in her family. And
my brother, I don't claim him.
I know you don't. I know, but I'm still pointing out all of our complicated history that we choose to fight and wrestle with that. And so I love my sister for her wonderful story, always keeping us clear. I know she don't claim him. I don't claim him either, but I'm just wanting y'all to know just the greatness that's in this Bible study, that we go back with history, with genealogies, to be able to search and find out how special and radical we are. Debbie, I'm gonna give you the last word, because I'm sorry, I evoked somebody.
As usual, I always enjoy this. And I'm a descendant of Sally's sister, Mary, who is more gangster than you could possibly imagine. And I just I want everybody to understand it's important that we all know our history, because they keep trying to take it away from us. We take 2 steps forward and we get pushed 4 steps back. You know, I mean, we can start to see how they're starting to charge for documents. They're doubling the price on it. So I suggest everybody get their request for documentation in before June.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay.
Like, you need to get Caesar's military records now.
That's what we're working on. Remember, Adolphus Caesar.
I know.
So perfect. So, all right, y'all. So thank you all for everybody tuning in. We will not meet till after resurrection. We'll be in class tomorrow. And then, so thank you all. God bless you. Go in peace.
Good night.
Good night.